The screen is visible. What we have to read? Can somebody confirm if the screen that is to be read is visible? Okay. Okay. So Shivalli, would you like to start reading?
Yeah, Bhaiya, I will.
Please.
The soul and the life are two quite different powers.
Just first read the heading. It's a section with
Yeah,
four small letters. Yeah.
I'll read from the head. The psychic being or soul and the vital or life. The soul and the life are two quite different powers. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit which supports the individual nature, mind, life, body. No. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit which supports the individual nature, mind, life, body, or the instruments, the manifestation of the nature. In most men, the soul is hidden and covered over by the action of the external nature. They mistake the vital being for the soul because it is a vital which animates and moves the body. But this vital being is a thing made up of desires and executive forces, good and bad. It is the desire soul, not the true being, not the true thing. It is when the true soul, the psyche, comes forward and begins first to influence and then govern the actions of the instrumental nature that man begins to overcome vital desire and grow towards a greater divine nature.
Please read the next one also.
We are concerned with the growth of the soul out of the ignorance, not its plunge into it. The lower nature is the nature of the ignorance. What we seek is to grow into the nature of the truth. How do you make out that when the soul has looked towards the truth and is moving towards it? A pull back by the vital and the ego towards the ignorance is a glorious action of the soul and not a revolt of the lower nature. I suppose you're floundering about in the confusion of the idea that the desire soul in the vital is the true psyche of man, if you like, but that is no part of my explanation of things. I made a clear distinction between the two, so I refuse to sanctify the revolt of the lower nature by calling it the sanction of the soul. If it is the soul that wants to fail, why is there any struggle or sorrow over the business? It would be a perfectly smooth affair.
Yeah. The next two also.
The psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires. It is the spark of the divine in all things manifested here that grows into the psychic being and supports the evolution. It is that which survives the dissolution of the vital and physical sheaths and returns to birth again. The two feelings you have are that of the two different personalities or parts in the being. One which has the feeling of service is in the vital, the other which has the feeling of the child and of the self giving is psychic. In the progress of the sadhana, these different parts or personalities get developed or transformed and harmonized with each other, all becoming parts of the ultimate perfection of the being in the mother's consciousness.
Right. Thank you. After this, it's just basically four small letters. Then we conclude this section. We will try that we are able to cover this today. Okay. The psychic being or soul and the vital or life. The soul and the life are two quite different powers. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit, what we would normally call divine spirit. If we use the English word, then divine self is Paramatman. Yeah, basically, I mean the Paramatman that way, or the Purushottama. Sometimes the word spirit is used for Purusha. Mostly it is the word soul which is used for Purusha. Anyway, we understand what he means by this. He's referring to the divine, basically, calling it here the divine spirit. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit which supports the individual nature. Mind, life, body are the instruments for the manifestation of the nature. One second. Yeah. In most men, the soul is hidden and covered over by the action of the external nature. They mistake the vital being for the soul because it is the vital which animates and moves the body. Yeah. This is the most important, from the practical point of view, this is one of the most important sentences here in this letter. But this vital being is a thing made up of desires and executive forces, good and bad. It is the desire soul, not the true thing. It is when the true soul, psyche, comes forward and begins first to influence and then govern the actions of the instrumental nature, that man begins to overcome vital desire and grow towards a greater divine nature. We are familiar with this idea. It has come several times earlier in our study, but just so that you do not miss anything, we'll go over this slowly and deliberately, right? The soul and the life are two quite different powers, very, very clearly. They are two quite different powers. Life ke liye, the word which Sri Aurobindo uses is the vital. Okay? It's the vital plane. इसमें अगला एक है in the last, which says the psychic world or plane. So when we read this, then it becomes absolutely clear that the psychic plane is different and the vital plane is, it becomes even more clear because you are told about the psychic plane, right? The soul and the life are two quite different powers. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit which supports the individual nature. This we have covered several times. That is which the soul is which supports the individual nature, is a spark of the divine spirit. Martyeshu Amritam, the Martyeshu mane in the mortals. Amritam means the immortal. This is one of the phrases used in the Veda for this. Several. I mean, I'm trying to go back right in the beginning when humanity has any written record of the mention of soul and such things. So Rig Veda is the oldest document. There are several ways in which it is referred like this. The soul is a spark of the divine spirit which supports the individual nature. Mind, life, body are the instruments for the manifestation of the nature. Now, this takes some reaching because we are normally identified with our mind, life, or body. We take it to be ourselves, right? Whereas the truth is that they are not ourselves, they are our instruments. And who are we? We are souls. Okay. In here, his point is to distinguish between them, between the soul and the life. So mind, life, body are the instruments for the manifestation of the nature. If we further want to divide the instrumental part, then roughly, like you can say, the sthula sharira, okay, that is composed of the pranamaya kosha and the annamaya kosha. So that is, you can say, that's the outer instrument, bahya karana. Whereas the mind, which is the manaha kosha, is a part of the inner instrument, what is called antaha karana. Last time Atmadeep had mentioned the terms man, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. So that is the antahakarana. Usme, I mean, basically that. So the inner instrument, I mean, just saying for the sake of completeness, what I know or I'm aware of that way. Okay, this is how you can further divide the instruments. But here, basically, the soul is a spark of the divine spirit coming straight from the divine. It is that which supports the individual nature from behind, obviously. Mind, life, and body are the instruments for the manifestation of the nature. How will any manifestation happen? The manifestation will happen through these instruments, right? Next. I don't think there would be any doubt in what I have said so far. Still, if there is anything, I mean, you can interrupt me anytime and we can discuss. Okay. In most men, the soul is hidden. This point again we have covered several times. Even, that Angushta Matra Purushaha of the size of the thumb. So what he says is that the influence it is able to have, the influence the soul is able to have in the personality is as much or in proportion to the mass of the thumb in the mass of the body, like that. I have shared that it's from the Synthesis of Yoga where he says this. I mean, roughly speaking, if you say if it's a 70 kg body and the thumb is like, I don't know, some grams, then that is how much suppressed and hidden the soul is in most people. Okay. How is it brought forward? Through sadhana, through yoga. It doesn't really come forward. I tried to look for this exact letter where he says this. I could not find last time. Uh, if and when I find, I'll share it. But basically, the soul does not come forward except by the practice of yoga. Of course, life to life evolution is happening and the soul is developing, and gradually it will come out, no doubt. Right? But consciously, there is this kind of turning point in the soul's journey when the soul starts consciously turning towards the divine. And it is when that happens that it comes forward and basically in its true right and governs the evolution. Right? So in most men, the soul is hidden and covered over by the action of the external nature. This is what is happening. The needs of the body or all the other things, the demands of the vital, the ideas, opinions, etc. of the mind, they do not basically allow the true thing to express itself, right? They mistake the vital being for the soul. Here we have to focus. He's distinguishing between the soul and the vital. They mistake the vital being for the soul because it is the vital which animates and moves the body. Anim means to move. That is how anim means life, basically, movement. They mistake the vital being for the soul because it is the vital which animates and moves the body. So it's like the electricity. So you could say this body is like the hardware and the vital is like the electricity. So because it is that which is the main motive force visibly, that is why we think that, that is the soul. There is a reason for the confusion, because if the vital becomes incooperative or sort of dormant like that, then there is no motive force. आगे बढ़ने का कुछ करने का इच्छा नहीं होता, right? And most people are usually driven by desires. रजोगुण, अगर गीता की भाषा में बोले, it is the रजोगुण, which is the vital being, right? But this vital being is a thing made up of, what is it made up of? Desires and executive forces, good and bad. Executive forces mean whatever basically the nature is wanting to do through you. So, that final pushing thing, that executive power. Some force is trying to move you to get something done. Kuch achieve karna hai, right? But this vital, it's all very obvious. I'm just going very slowly. But this vital being, is a thing made up of desires and executive forces, good and bad. It is the desire soul, not the true thing. The true thing is the soul, the psychic being, right? This is the desire soul. This is a word Sri Aurobindo has coined. You will not find it anywhere else. Basically in this heart region. So this double soul in man. I think there is a chapter with this title in Life Divine Part 1, The Double Soul in Man. Yeah, there is a chapter with this title. Double soul भी है and ठीक से मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा. Maybe desire soul also is there. So it is the desire soul, not the true thing. Why is it being called soul? Why is this word being coined like this? बीच में hyphen लगा करके, because that is the moving thing. वो ही है जो आगे push कर रहा है. But it is not the true one. It is the desire soul. It's not the soul in itself, not the true thing. And this mistake is very, very common. Very, very common. Desire hai. It's a strong desire. It can be a very sattvic desire also, right? But is it the soul? Not necessarily.
Anmol bhai, the area is also same, no? That is why the confusion.
Correct. So
Because
yeah, the heart region is basically, डबल सीट, वो इमोशनल बीइंग का सीट वही है, बट द साइकिक
हाँ,
बीइंग इज बिहाइंड.
had it been stomach like when your gut तो पता चल जाता सबको कि
दैट्स,
ये
तो केवल बोलने का बात है.
हाँ
This nature's construction, how she has designed the
नहीं
whole
नहीं, मैं तो
structure.
खाली
I
बोलने के
know.
लिए बोल रहा हूँ।
स्टमक वगैरह जो होता है वो एम्बिशंस के लिए कहा जाता है.
वो
एम्बिशन, ग्रीड.
एग्जिस्टेंस, हाँ
हाँ.
एग्जिस्टेंस के लिए है ना वो, क्योंकि
हाँ.
एग्जिस्टेंस इज थ्रेटेंड, यू
हाँ.
फील द
हाँ.
गट फीलिंग व्हेन योर एग्जिस्टेंस इज थ्रेटेंड,
Yeah.
डर लगता है।
Yeah. Shivali, you were saying something?
Yeah, Anmol, but I always had this thing why the soul is used in the desire, like desire, soul,
Yeah.
hyphenate.
Yeah. Because
So I
see,
were yeah,
the soul is the thing, it is defined as that without which everything else is useless. Matlab, if you don't have the soul within you, then basically the whole system collapses and nothing can happen, nothing can move, right? And in most men, it is the desire which moves you. It is that which is keeping everything together in the sense कि कुछ forward push है. It is that which is the motive force, right? Motive वो emotion से कि it is that which is moving you forward. That is why. But that is why it's a coinage made by him, desire dash soul. It is not the true soul. It is the desire soul.
okay.
The the true soul, why it is much more silent, far more deeper, and when I mean, the difference basically is that of demand and self-giving, if you want to see.
Yeah.
A fundamental difference, if you want to see, between desire and the real soul is that of the desire soul is full of demands, pushing itself like this, and the true soul is full of self-giving to the will of the divine and to, full of bhakti and all that. That is the
One of
difference.
the things, Anmol bhai, which I
Huh.
can share as a symptom of this, right?
Yes.
To recognize whether it is your desire soul
Yeah.
or is your inner, like the inmost soul.
Yeah.
Whenever desire soul breaks, you feel a sort of dhakka in the heart, a
Mm.
push.
Mm.
That means if you feel the push, this is what I have experienced. I may be wrong or right, I don't know, but
Mm.
you may correct me. The thing is that when you feel that push or that tear off in the heart, it's normally the desire soul.
Mm.
But the psychic being will never feel that because it will remain stable.
Yeah.
Uh, Even in cases of extreme crisis or emotional crisis, typically. That is what my observation is. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
share.
basically those exaltations and depressions, that can be the word for it. कि वो इतना एक high आना, and when that thing is not done, then एक वो जो low आना. So this kind of exaltation and depression, this is a sign that it is the vital. Very well said by you. Whereas जो real entity है, the true soul, that is not so much prone or subject to these kind of highs and lows like this. That is something, it burns like a flame quietly and persistently. और वो हतप्रभ नहीं होती है, right? Because
वो
it is
समता
in
में रहती है,
connection.
राइट?
हाँ, समता आती है उस. Yes. और वो
इवन
हतप्रभ
डेथ
नहीं
यू
होगा,
कैन, हाँ
उसका
हाँ
उत्साह
हाँ
कम नहीं होगा.
हाँ,
So if
इवन डेथ
the,
यू विल बी एबल टू विथस्टैंड, नो, इन दैट
sorry,
केस, इवन डेथ, डेथ में भी,
yes,
इन
yeah,
दैट सेंस,
that is what gives you the strength to withstand everything. If we, जो सावित्री से हमने वो पैसेज मे बी ग्रुप में डाला था या नहीं, कि थ्रू दिस शी सेंड्स अस हवर पावर्स बाय विच वी कैन बियर एंड ऑल दैट, जो था पूरा का पूरा उसमें. मे बी वी कैन इवन रीड दैट अगर टाइम होगा तो या द बेसिक डिफरेंस इज दैट वाइटल से अगर आप कुछ करेंगे, सो if it does not happen, there might be a little utsaha, but then suddenly it will fall flat. So that
हाँ
stability is lacking. Very, very good point that you have made. Thank you for that. Yeah. Here, the difference he's making is, मतलब जो words यहाँ पे use हुए हैं, it's the desires. So that which is full of desires. And desire basically comes from the sense of not being complete. That is where it comes from. और उसका जो वेदांत में solution दिया जाता है, it is that to know that you are full in the sense that you have come from the full. जो श्लोका कोट होता है हमेशा, पूर्णमिदम पूर्णात पूर्णमुदच्यते. So you have come from the complete, and you are complete in that sense because that completeness is your nature. It's a very important psychological point to understand अदरवाइज परप्लेक्सिटी होती है कि डिजायर को भी छोड़ना है लेकिन फिर करें क्या, एंड हाउ, वाई टू नॉट डिजायर, हाउ टू नॉट डिजायर, राइट? सो आई मीन वेदांत और अध्यात्म गिव्स यू दिस क्लैरिटी कि बिकॉज द सेल्फ इज कंप्लीट इन इटसेल्फ, वो आत्मतृप्त है, इट इज फुल इन इटसेल्फ, इट डजंट नीड एनीथिंग. If it doesn't need anything, then why is that manifested? Fundamental question. The answer is for delight, but that is a difference. You do not get delight by following desire. What you get by following desire is a pleasure or that kind of a temporary satisfaction. Mostly pleasure, जिसको सुखम बोलते हैं, right? That's why the Gita distinguishes. 16th chapter में it says atyantikam sukham, and it's an all exceeding happiness that you get when you come to know the self. वो shloka, I mean, I'll find it out and share it. It's a beautiful shloka. So this is the difference.
Small question, Anmol bhai.
हाँ.
If you are aware of the story of Shiva and Kanyakumari,
Hmm.
right? When she set ablaze herself,
Hmm.
Shiva becomes very dejected.
Hmm.
So that would be what? What would that be? Because now, if
नहीं, that is the God's reaction or response that way to the भक्ता. वो वैसे नहीं है.
अच्छा वो वैसे नहीं है.
नहीं नहीं नहीं. It is not sadness. It's not like, Shiva is aghast ki what has happened to my devotee or to
हाँ,
somebody who thinks of me like her husband. I'm not very, very familiar, but I think this is the story that she wanted only Shiva as her husband, right?
correct, correct, correct,
हाँ,
correct.
ऐसे अक्का महादेवी करके एक और है साउथ में. आई
हाँ,
हर्ड दैट स्टोरी फर्स्ट टाइम आई थिंक थ्रू जग्गी वासुदेव. सो यू नो वो उसका अलग, उसको मधुर भाव की भक्ति बोलते हैं. इन वैष्णविज्म इट इज देयर. मीरा का जो एक लिविंग
हाँ,
एग्जांपल है दैट
हाँ,
मेरे तो
हाँ,
गिरधर
हाँ,
गोपाल दूसरों को एटसेट्रा. सो दैट इज अ
हाँ,
काइंड ऑफ भक्ति. अगर मतलब सिंस यू हैव टच द पॉइंट, सो इट्स आई मीन गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी टू शेयर. Sri Aurobindo mentions these gradations of love in the synthesis of yoga. Godward emotions is the name of the chapter. It's in Bhakti Yoga. Hmm? The shortest section in the book, Bhakti Yoga. So, father, then friend, then mother, and then lover. This, he says, is the increasing gradation of the intensity of bhakti. Father, friend, greater than that is that of mother, and highest is that of lover. And उसमें वो बोलते हैं कि those religions which are connecting to God as father, like the Semitic religions, they are
हाँ,
having that. हाँ, उनका वो उतना डेवलप नहीं है, भक्ति वगैरह भी उतना उतना इंटेंसिटी वैसे नहीं है.
I
उनके अंदर एक
see.
certain crudeness. हाँ, this
हाँ,
is what just fine psychological points and spiritual
yeah,
points.
very,
क्या
very,
बोलते
very
हैं,
fine, very
very
super
very.
fine.
हाँ,
Very.
very. I'll मतलब I'll share the
Quote
link to
again.
those
So
paragraphs.
father, then
Must read for
friend.
everybody. Sorry.
हाँ. Father, then friend, then mother, and then finally
Lover.
lover.
Lover. हाँ.
I see.
So then he says कि जो friend वाला aspect है उसमें the intensity is more. Then जो mother वाला है उसमें it is even more. So that's why I mean like Christianity भी है उसमें. Initially तो it is that father and all का concept, but फिर उसमें फिर वो वर्जिन मेरी का भी आता है. इंडिया में तो ये चिरकाल से है. The divine mother, अभी वो नवरात्रि भी चल रहा है. She is mentioned in the Rig Veda. Masculine और feminine powers होती हैं. That is there as old as the Vedas. Nothing new about it, right? But
Correct.
and that's why like mothers. So that's why sometimes it is difficult for children to bear the intensity of their mothers. उसका प्यार इतना ज्यादा स्ट्रांग होता है, अगर आपको वो कुछ बोल देगी तो आप गए काम से. You can't bear it, like that. So but highest is that of lover. वो मैंने इसलिए बोला because वो इससे लिंक भी है डिजायर, सोल, वाइटल, साइकिक वाइकिक से. मेनी टाइम्स आजकल ये सब जो चलता है ना, ट्विन फ्लेम और ये वो क्या बोलते हैं उसको.
What is that? I don't know.
हाँ,
Sorry.
twin flame, basically they say that these are two souls who are like the masculine and feminine counterpart of each other, and they are like
Oh,
spiritual
soulmates.
partners meant to be like. Mother and Sri Aurobindo are the most authentic example of that, because they were truly that. They were the avatar and the Shakti, right? But वो कई बार basically it is desire. It is desire for romance. It is desire for emotional fulfillment through that, etc. Right?
Correct.
But it takes this form कि वो desire soul है, but you start thinking that this is my spiritual partner. क्या बोलते हैं उसको, जो भी वो words use किए जाते हैं.
हमारे टाइम पे तो उसको सोलमेट बोलते थे. ये पहली बार.
Soulmate. I was missing that word. So soulmate. But mostly it is not that. It is coming from the desires. और उसकी वजह से a lot of confusion of जबरदस्ती आप अध्यारोप कर रहे हो, ओ ये तो मेरा soulmate है, and you're thinking or you are surrendering to something or somebody which is not divine. It is something a mixture. Divine
Correct.
is there in everybody, but it is only divine beings who can be like that, or at least a certain level of evolution and development, not before that. Okay, so to come back to what I was saying, mother के बाद वाला जो होता है, there he says is lover. ठीक है, and there he says that this is what constitutes the essence of love. This is the highest and most powerful form of love, and basically that energy of love which is there inside everybody, it will not find its satisfaction unless you experience it, right? Again उसके एक्सपीरियंस में ग्रेड्स हैं, so obviously you cannot jump straight to the divine love, like that. So most people, that is why they need to undergo this process of human love for several lifetimes before they are ready for the divine love. But he says clearly, इसमें दो चीजों में बोलते हैं, and I will not belabor the point too much, this is not what we are reading today, कि it has two things. Demand, कि मतलब it should be extending infinitely, and also the intensity of the thing should never reduce. Now it is self-contradictory. If something is there for a very long time, obviously it will lose momentum and the intensity will decrease. But that is exactly what the demand which this kind of love makes. Okay, the intensity should always be the same, it should never reduce, and it should be there infinitely. And this is why all lovers are constantly fighting with each other or quarreling with each other. Right? Exactly. And I'm telling you, it's very, very practical and very, very liberating. Because love, no matter what anybody says, वैरागी टाइप के, तो इट इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल एनर्जी इन ह्यूमन नेचर, और वो इंसान को डिवाइन डिवाइन बना सकती है, और वो उसको कंप्लीटली ब्रेक कर सकती है. इट कैन डिस्ट्रॉय समबडीज लाइफ, राइट? स्पेशली इफ इट टेक्स लोअर फॉर्म्स और वो लस्ट फस्ट में चला जाए, फिर तो और भी विकृति होती है. बट लेट्स नॉट टॉक अबाउट दैट. सो देयर फाइनली बेसिकली मेक्स अ स्टेटमेंट, इट इज ओनली द डिवाइन which can fulfill this energy. No human being can fulfill this energy. So basically, that energy of love within you, that need for love within you, it can be only fulfilled when you attain the divine himself as your lover. And that, उसका मतलब वो नहीं है कि हमें जैसे दिखाते हैं, some people they start dressing like a woman and all that is not. वो ठीक है, किसी का भाव होगा. Shri Ramakrishna also used to do that in a certain phase of his sadhana. The soul in you is Radha, okay, and the divine is Krishna. So when that soul comes forward, that psychic being comes forward, then that true love is experienced. Not before. उसका real meaning वो है. Yes, the soul in us is what is Radha. अगर आप वैष्णव वाला यूज करेंगे तो राधा, and the divine is Krishna. और अगर आपने बोले तो कन्याकुमारी वाला, so that Kanyakumari is basically the soul. It is you and me, right? And that Shiva is the divine. So it is the love of the soul for the divine, the absolute need of the soul for the divine, to quote a very important phrase of Sri
But
Aurobindo.
then Sri Aurobindo in some other letter also says there are 7 ways to enter into relationship with the
हाँ, वो
God.
discipleship to God the teacher, sonship to God the master. वो एक चीज है. There it's a very very complete, उसमें सारे के सारे relations cover हो जाते हैं, right?
अच्छा, because
जो
because these are all.
intensity है, हाँ, उसमें sonship to God the father है, tenderness of God the mother है, clasp of the hand of the divine friend है, sport with our boy and comrade playfellow करके exact नहीं याद आ रहा मुझे, blissful servitude to God the master. These are all bhavas of bhakti. Okay. गुरु ईश्वर के प्रति शिष्य भाव होना, ईश्वर के प्रति दास्य भाव होना, एटसेट्रा. बट जो जब तक आपका ये मधुरा भाव वाला नहीं होगा, until you are, because this is the very essence of love. वो anybody, I mean, who has been in a romantic relationship, they can understand this. जो उसे हाई मिलता है ना, if you want to use the word high, you do not get through any other thing, right? So
will you paste that comradeship?
Definitely.
I seem to have
I'll paste
lost
that.
it. And that is also written in that level of gradation, no?
क्या माने?
वो जो gradation अभी आपने बताया,
हाँ,
वही gradation में लिखा है ना श्री अरविंद ने?
नहीं. ग्रेडेशन वाला जो चीज है, that is there in Synthesis of Yoga, Godward Emotions, last 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. Okay, this one what you are saying, sir, is from Thoughts and Aphorisms,
but it is not in graded form.
No, it is not in graded form. There he has not given the gradation. See, there's a difference again. Aphorisms were written more for himself. They were written in 1913. They were part of a private diary. Later on, with the mother's approval, they were published in 1955 or something, right? So it's not a thing which he has, वो उसमें explain नहीं किया है, उसका style of writing ही अलग है.
अच्छा अच्छा
हाँ. Now that you're saying, मतलब maybe उसमें वो grade हो सकता है, the way he has written it, but I'm not sure. That we can see, we can discuss next time also. I'll share
Thank
that
you.
quotation on the.
Please, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
No problem. Right? So, I mean, thanks to this, whatever we have covered, one way this, and because it's a very common thing कि ये ना soulmate और ये सब उसकी वजह से, but it's really coming from the desire soul. जो soul है उसको केवल भगवान चाहिए, and it will not be satisfied, as Sri Aurobindo said, with anything short of the divine. It will not be. It takes some time to understand this, all that. And it's not that Sri Aurobindo is, that love is necessary for most people. So one should not cheat also oneself. कि आप अभी उतना डेवलप नहीं है, बट नो ओनली डिवाइन, तो फिर वो समटाइम्स हम दूसरों की देखा देखी भी करते हैं. तो एनीवे वो सब तो फिर बहुत पर्सनल और इंडिविजुअल वाली बात हो गई, राइट. It is when the true soul psyche comes forward and begins first to influence, and then govern the actions of the instrumental nature. First to influence, यही प्रोसेस रहेगा. First it will be as an influence. It will prevent us from doing wrong things. It will be restricted till that. Okay, it will guide and we will follow. तो जितना हम follow करेंगे उतना बढ़ेगा. So it begins as influence and finally govern the actions of the instrumental nature. That man begins to overcome vital desire and grow towards a greater divine nature. Gita says very clearly that the desire is to be taken as the ripu in yoga. थर्ड चैप्टर के एंड की तरफ आता है, विद्येनम इह वैरिनम. द वर्ड दैट इज कम्स देयर इज वैरी. हिंदी का जो वर्ड है ना वैरी, बैरी बोलते हैं नॉर्मल हिंदी में. सो वैरिनम, वैरिनी, लाइक दैट, वैरिनम. विद्धि एनम इह वैरिनम. विद्धि माने जानो, नो. एनम मीन्स दिस, इह मीन्स हियर इन दिस वर्ल्ड, वैरिनम. In this world, no desire to be the enemy of spiritual progress. All of us are, I mean, more or less familiar with this. वही जो सीक्वेंस में पढ़ा था ना लास्ट टाइम कि आई नो व्हाट इज राइट बट आई फॉलो द रॉन्ग. लैटिन कोटेशन था, फिर उसके ऊपर गीता का था, काम एष क्रोध एष रजोगुण समुद्भव महाशनो महापाप्मा विद्येनम इह वैरिनम. So why does a man do something wrong even though as if against his will, no, as if taken by force like this? Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. It is desire, it is anger, and वहां पे डिजायर से भी ज्यादा उसको फिर स्पेसिफाई करते हैं लस्ट, बिकॉज दैट इज द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ डिजायर, राइट. इट कैन रियली लीड अ मैन टू अ वेरी, I mean, dark path like that. Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. Know them to be born of the rajoguna samudbhava.
Ajamin.
Mahashano mahapapma. It is the all devouring. Maha ashana. Ashnute. Ashnute enjoy भी होता है ईशोपनिषद में. Ashnute also means to eat. यहाँ पे उसका सेंस है to eat. Mahashano, the all devouring, the great devourer. वो आप उसको, जो डिजायर नाम की फायर है उसमें आप कितना भी ईंधन डालते जाओ वो कभी बंद नहीं होगी. And to feed the fire of desire and to think that after feeding it will become absent, it is absolutely stupid. वो कभी नहीं होने वाला. फायर में आप और फ्यूल डालोगे तो वो बढ़ेगी कि घटेगी? बढ़ेगी. So it's like that. So at some point one has to understand this कि no, I have to have a certain control over my desires and gradually overcome this. Increase the sattva guna in me. Increase the sense of right in me. What is right? And gradually attain that gunatita avastha where I am the instrument of the divine, right? Mahashano mahapapma, the great sinner, विद्येनम इह वैरिनम. वो जो ओवरकम वाली बात कर रहा है वहां पे जही, वहां गीता में बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग लैंग्वेज है. यू हैव टू स्ले इट, ही सेज. स्ले के लिए जो है जही, जही शत्रुम महाबाहो काम रूपम दुरासदम. आई थिंक इट्स इन द लास्ट वर्स ऑफ द थर्ड चैप्टर.
That word is very powerful. Jahi is
जही,
very
हाँ जही,
powerful.
हाँ.
Because Ja means to
अभी
produce
अपना
and
जो
Ha means to
नवरात्रि चल रहा है,
destroy.
यस एग्जैक्टली, स्ले, कट करना. दुर्गा सप्तशती अगर आप पढ़ें उसमें जही वर्ड बहुत आता है. एक पूरा वो स्तोत्र है मैनी स्टैंजास का, उसमें रूपम देही जयम देही यशम देही द्विषो जही. जो द्वेष है उसको खत्म करो, द्विषो जहि, बार बार उसमें आता है, तो several times it comes, right?
Yeah, because these are very generative by nature. They by fuel, as you said, they generate more.
Yeah.
So usko ha karna, and this story of Ajamil, Anmol bhai, I'm reminded of.
Oh,
In have you heard the story of
yes,
in
yes,
Bhagavatam, that
yes,
because
yes.
he was exactly this, as you mentioned, lust. Till the age of
हाँ
70, he was on his deathbed, and his youngest son was born, which was about 2 to 5 years old,
हाँ,
and
अच्छा,
by inspiration of God, he named him Narayan,
हाँ हाँ,
and then he used to call him Narayan, come, Narayan, come. At the end, I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a terrific story, but yeah. Oh, sorry,
उसमें
go.
थोड़ा सा ये है कि you know, if on your deathbed, I understand what it means, but I am actually a little skeptical about that story, to be totally honest, because it seems like you have tricked the divine into, you know, वो ऐसे नहीं होता है, पता है, आप पूरी जिंदगी एकदम दुराचारी रहे हैं, and at the last moment, it could be also, I don't know. These are things written by great rishis, so, you know, I am obviously not of that level, so
Vyasa
I
has
can't say
himself
for sure.
written, so I don't know.
I
Vyasa
know,
himself has written in Bhakti.
I
Bhakti
know.
is the
But
thing.
if you think about it logically, okay?
हाँ हाँ,
See, the purpose of that is to instill faith in the name of the divine. Okay?
correct. Nama Japa is the purpose. हाँ
Exactly. Like, for example, जो आप कह रहे हैं, श्री
हाँ
अरबिंदो in the essays on the Gita, उसमें उन्होंने बोला है कि you know this sanctifying death in Banaras, something like this, कि आपने जिंदगी भर कुछ नहीं किया और लास्ट में जाकर के हफ्ते भर में रहे और बनारस में जाके मर गए, that is not going to give you liberation.
correct, correct,
That's
correct.
a popular superstition. So
Yeah,
that has to be inculcated throughout your life.
true, true.
Just by mistake, again, I don't know exactly, I don't know, but any इसमें जो मेरे को लग रहा था कि आप उसका वो वाला एस्पेक्ट, तो you know that Vishwa Prema, that all love for everybody and all that, that can turn into Vishwa Kama because of the impurity of desire. This is the great danger जो होता है.
Hmm.
That is like, हाँ, अजामिल की स्टोरी में मे बी बिकॉज ही वाज अ बहुत दुराचारी था उस सेंस में.
नहीं नहीं, वो शुरू में he was a Brahmin.
हाँ
But he goes to the forest.
हाँ हाँ,
There he
देयर ही
sees.
सीज, हाँ हाँ,
हाँ,
एनीवे, ठीक है, 840. uh shall I go to the next one? If anybody has any, because it's been a मतलब बहुत खुल गया discussion, good only, this is basically the tenor of our sessions. Anybody has anything to share or any question or anything before I move forward? Anybody? No? Okay, right. हाँ, अरोड़ा जी.
No,
अच्छा, okay. We are concerned with the growth of the soul out of the ignorance, not its plunge into it. मतलब we are concerned with the evolution, not with the involution. That is what he's saying. The soul's plunge into the ignorance is what is called the involution, right? The lower nature is the nature of the ignorance, what is called apara prakriti in the Gita. Very, very, this is one of the most important points in the Gita, distinguishing between the apara, the lower, and the higher nature. And the ego is the binding mechanism of the lower nature, whereas in the higher nature, it is the jiva, the soul, basically. Okay? The lower nature is the nature of the ignorance. What we seek is to grow into the nature of the truth. Okay? Simple enough. How do you make out that when the soul has looked towards the truth and is moving towards it, a pull back by the vital and the ego towards the ignorance is a glorious action of the soul and not a revolt of the lower nature. So, you know, somebody is under this delusion basically. How do you make out that when the soul has looked towards the truth and is moving towards it, वहां जा रहा था, a pull back by the vital and the ego, desire and self assertion in a very egoistic way. वो पूरा 16th chapter में गीता के बताया हुआ है, what is the asuric nature driven by the rajasic ego, right? A pull back by the vital and the ego towards the ignorance is a glorious action of the soul. It's not a glorious action of the soul. This is just rhetorically he's writing, and not a revolt of the lower nature. It is definitely a revolt of the lower nature, something which you have to suppress, that revolt, to overcome that. I suppose you are, see, floundering about, in the confusion of the idea that the desire soul in the vital is the ट्रू साइके ऑफ मैन, अगेन दैट सेम थिंग कि आप इस कंफ्यूजन में हैं. फ्लाउंडरिंग बेसिकली मूव्स, यू आर मूविंग अंडर सम कंफ्यूजन लाइक दैट. I suppose you are floundering about in the confusion of the idea that the desired soul in the vital is the true psyche of man. You know, one should not be very cruel or brutal कि ऐसे कैसे का. It's वो होता है human nature में. It is so mixed. It happens to the best of people sometimes. वो desire इतनी strong उठ करके आती है and you really want it so badly, and obviously you have to have a spiritual justification for everything. So then what do? हाँ ये पक्का soul से आ रहा होगा. This must be my soul. This is how we cheat ourselves. Honesty, that is why, is most important quality in yoga. Most important. Honesty is indispensable for yoga. Mother ke recorded message. Honesty is indispensable for yoga. To try to cheat the divine is worse than to try to cheat a human being, and much more foolish. I don't know the context in which it was said, but basically, that self-deception के ऊपर हमेशा वो torch होनी चाहिए. Where am I deceiving myself? One has to be very brutally honest with oneself if one has to follow yoga consciously, right? I suppose you are floundering about in the confusion of the idea that the desired soul in the vital is the true psyche of man. If you like, see, he's just kind of having some humor or, with the disciple. If you like, but that is no part of my explanation of things. And being a bit strict also as a guru. अगर तुम्हें लगता है ठीक है तुम करो वो जो करना चाहते हो, बट ऐसा नहीं है. That is no part of my explanation of things. I make a clear distinction between the two. Very clear. The soul and the life are two quite different powers, right? I make a clear distinction between the two. So I refuse to sanctify the role of the lower nature by calling the sanction of the soul. I refuse to sanctify the revolt of the lower nature by calling it the sanction of the soul. I do not know, the question is not printed. But जो मेरे को अभी दिमाग में याद आ रहा है, so there was a sadhika called Sahana Devi, very great sadhika. मतलब she had attained the Brahman consciousnness. She was very advanced. So Bengali थी. So एक जगह वो लिखती है श्री अरविंदो को, I am having a strong desire to eat crab and this and that. Non-veg खाने का मेरा बहुत मन कर रहा है. तो श्री अरविंदो replied very bluntly, eat your desire. Right. So ऐसा कुछ होगा या something,
Beautiful,
maybe,
eat your desire.
yeah, eat your desire. वो उसमें आप फिर लैक्सिटी नहीं कर सकते हैं, दैट टू इन एन आश्रम. और उस टाइम जो यहाँ पे सिचुएशन थी, सिचुएशन इन द सेंस व्हाट दे वर अटेम्प्टिंग, एंड इट वाज वेरी फोकस्ड. सो एनीवे उसमें नहीं जाते, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट टॉपिक.
This refusal to sanctify the revolt is a very tough, you require a tough will, extremely tough.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a very powerful push and it can topple
नहीं,
you.
but the more we follow the sattvic movements, and higher than that, the more we follow the promptings of the soul, the more that will increases. The more that will increases. Basically, what we have to just do the right. I agree, it's not easy. वो उसके टेम्पेस्ट्स आते हैं, स्टॉर्म्स आते हैं, वाइटल के डिजायर्स
Tempest is the right word.
एग्जैक्टली. टेम्पेस्ट वो आते हैं, बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग आता है.
कि अर्जुन
गीता
भी
में एक
ऐसे
श्लोक है
ही
बड़ा
कुछ.
पावरफुल.
हाँ, वही.
शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुम् प्राक् शरीर विमोक्षणात् काम क्रोधोद्भवं वेगम स युक्तः स सुखी नरः. 5th चैप्टर में, आई थिंक आई विल रिपीट इट.
उद्वेग.
हाँ, शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुम्, जो केपेबल है. शक्नोति, सोढुम् माने टॉलरेट करना. शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुम् प्राक् शरीर विमोक्षणात्, शरीर के छूटने के पहले. प्राक मतलब पहले, शरीर विमोक्षणात् उससे मुक्ति होने के पहले. प्राक शरीर विमोक्षणात् काम क्रोधोद्भवम वेगम, काम और क्रोध से उत्पन्न जो वेग नेचर के अंदर आता है. काम क्रोधोद्भवम वेगम स युक्तः स सुखी नरः. डिजायर से या पर्टिकुलरली, मतलब काम से मतलब है वहां पे लस्ट से, बट आप उसको डिजायर वेरी स्ट्रांगली, आई वांट इट, राइट. काम क्रोधोद्भवम वेगम. और एंगर, गुस्सा आया तो बस एकदम, एंड यू जस्टिफाई योर एंगर. दिस इज अ डिवाइन wrath, आई एम रुद्रा राइट नाउ. नथिंग लाइक दैट.
Right.
या श्री अरविंदो कहते हैं, व्हेन आई हियर ऑफ अ राइटियस wrath, आई वंडर एट मैन्स कैपेसिटी ऑफ सेल्फ डिसेप्शन. अफोरिज्म है.
Oh my God.
When I hear of a righteous wrath, I wonder at
Righteous
man's
wrath. Look at the
it's not
adjective.
verbatim, एक आधा word मैं miss कर रहा हूँ, but when I hear of a righteous wrath, I wonder at man's capacity for self-deception. Thoughts and Aphorisms is one of the greatest books to read. मतलब
बहुत बड़ा sarcasm है ये तो.
वो सारे they are written like that. very provocative, very sarcastic, like that, right? So काम क्रोधोद्भवम वेगम स युक्तः स सुखी नरः, वो युक्त है मानी अपनी आत्मा से जुड़ा हुआ है, and only such a person is happy. If you are not able to control your desire and anger and all that, you cannot be happy. Your life will मतलब have a good deal of misery. वो मिजरेबल एलिमेंट जो आता है लाइफ में उसी की वजह से आता है, सुख नहीं मिल सकता। स युक्तः स सुखी नरः, वेरी पावरफुल श्लोक।
In such a case, the only option is to hold on, or rather cling is the
Yeah,
word.
and हाँ
To
वही,
your
हाँ exactly,
to
exactly. You
cling
have to just hold on at
to
that.
your inner,
Yes.
you to inner psychic being को hold on करोगे
और
ना, तो ये
इसमें
जो
भी क्या
fire
होता है,
वो
एग्जैक्टली
bypass हो
व्हेन यू
जाएगा।
स्टार्ट डूइंग साधना कॉन्शियसली, जब आपने कि ओके अपना कमर कस के कि नो आई विल प्रैक्टिस द इंटेग्रल योगा, जैसे भी हो आई नो दिस इज द ग्रेटेस्ट, एंड पूरा करके वो जो भी शिवानंद ने समझाया उसमें, तो देन यू फाइंड कि जो अटैक्स होते हैं इन सब चीजों के वो और बढ़ने लगते हैं। बिकॉज अब तक तो आप जैसे चल रहा था वैसे चल रहे थे, बट नाउ यू वांट टू राइज अबव दीज नॉर्मल थिंग्स, तो नेचर टेस्ट्स यू, आर यू रियली रेडी, एंड बहुत ज्यादा वो वेव्स आती हैं उन चीजों की। दैट इज द टाइम व्हेन वो आपकी जो दृढ़ता है, विक्ट्री इज टू द मोस्ट परसिस्टेंट, मदर सेंटेंस, विक्ट्री इज टू द मोस्ट परसिस्टेंट, तो यू हैव टू बी वेरी स्ट्रांग एंड समहाउ गो थ्रू इट लाइक दैट। देयर आर लेटर्स एंड लेटर्स ऑफ श्री अरविंदो जहां पे उन्होंने इस तरह से गाइड किया कि जस्ट पास थ्रू द स्टॉर्म एंड इट विल पास, ये रहता नहीं, राइट? These things are temporary. Agama apayino agama apayina anityah तान स्थितिक शस्व भारत। पूरा मतलब सेकंड चैप्टर में मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्ण सुख दुखदाः, वो दैट इज मोर फॉर मटेरियल टचेस एंड सुख दुख एटसेट्रा, बट बेसिकली इवन दिस डिजायर की जो, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट समथिंग ट्रू इन इटसेल्फ, इट इज समथिंग बिलोंगिंग टू द इग्नोरेंस एंड समथिंग विच इज बेस्ड ऑन ईगो। डिजायर क्यों आती है? बिकॉज ऑफ द ईगो, बिकॉज ऑफ द सेंस ऑफ सेपरेशन। इफ यू नो दैट यू आर एवरीथिंग, देन व्हाई विल यू डिजायर एनीथिंग? यू विल नेवर डिजायर एनीथिंग ना। आप जानते हो कि आप परिपूर्ण हो, देयर इज नथिंग व्हिच इज आउटसाइड यू, एवरीथिंग इज विद इन यू, राइट? तत्र को मोहः कः शोकः एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः, you can apply that to yourself.
Correct. No, the keyword there is titiksha.
Titiksha means to tolerate.
Endure, correct.
That's the first step in samatha. पूरा श्री अरविंदो ने समता डिस्क्राइब किया डिटेल में। There are 3 chapters in Synthesis of Yoga, 1 in the Essays on the Gita. Titiksha is the first step. Bear करना, tolerate करना, ये सब होगा. This is part of the game. This is part of the game of evolution, right? And the strength is within us. The strength is within us. वही जो उसमें लिखा था ना, the soul of the divine spark which supports the individual nature. So this soul, this spark is there. The divine himself is there. मैंने पहले एक वो श्लोक बोला था 1323, देहे अस्मिन् पुरुषः परः उपद्रष्टानुमंता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहे अस्मिन् पुरुषः परः। इस देह में स्वयं परम पुरुष बैठा हुआ है। इट्स नॉट एन ऑर्डिनरी थिंग। दिस देह इज, इवन देवता जो हैं वो मनुष्य शरीर के लिए लालायित रहते हैं, बिकॉज दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ इवॉल्विंग लाइक दिस इज नॉट देयर इवन फॉर द गॉड्स, इवन फॉर द देवस. So the human body is something very precious that way, and the divine is there in it to support you through all these things, right? तो थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ते हैं इसमें. If you like, I may refuse to sanctify the revolt of the lower nature by calling it the sanction of the soul. If it is the soul that wants to fail, why is there any struggle or sorrow over the business? तो वही ना, नहीं, my soul wants me to fail. वो गिरना चाहता है. इट्स द वाइटल डिजायर इज कमिंग सो स्ट्रांगली. नहीं इसमें क्या है, वो मैं खुद ही, इट्स ऑल नॉनसेंस बेसिकली.
Now this here then the soul word is actually desire soul. He means desire.
Exactly, वो सारा उसी का खेल है बस. उन्होंने ना फ्लाउंडरिंग, कंफ्यूजन, ऑल दिस. इसमें भी मतलब वी डू नॉट हैव टू सी दिस इन अदर्स कि ये दूसरे को, अपने आप को कैसे डिसीव कर रहा है. अपने को खुद को देखना है. हाउ एम आई डिसीविंग माई सेल्फ कॉन्स्टेंटली? था तो डिजायर, बट उसको भगवान का नाम दे करके और उसको सोल का नाम दे करके वाओ, तो सबसे बड़ा सैंक्शन मिल गया. आप तो जो मर्जी करो.
करेक्ट. नो, बिकॉज सोल नेवर फेल्स.
एग्जैक्टली.
ये जो लिखा है ये कटाक्ष है.
It can never fail. It can
never fail.
See, this is, he writes like this only when absolutely necessary. Otherwise, he does not use this level of sarcasm. Normally, Sri Aurobindo doesn't use, but वो कुछ ज्यादा ही ignorance में था, उसको झटका देने के लिए Sri Aurobindo has written like this.
हाँ, ये बहुत
exactly.
Action दिया एकदम.
Exactly. If it is a soul that wants to fail, why is there any struggle or sorrow over the business? It would be a perfectly smooth affair, right? 852. ठीक है. May I read the next one?
Please, let's complete this.
Let's please.
Very,
Yeah.
interesting.
The psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires. साइकिक बीइंग मिल जाएगा तो सारी डिजायर्स पूरी हो जाएंगी, वो तो कामधेनु की तरह है. नो, द साइकिक बीइंग इज नॉट द फुलफिलर ऑफ डिजायर्स. It is the spark of the divine in all things manifested here that grows into the psychic being and supports the evolution. It is that which survives the dissolution of the vital and physical sheaths and returns to birth again. Yeah. So the psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires. इसमें one thing he's clarifying again, the difference between the psychic and the vital. What is the psychic being? It is the spark of the divine in all things manifested here that grows into the psychic being. So the spark grows into the psychic being and supports the evolution. This we have covered times without number in this thing series. The psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires. उसका काम वो नहीं है इच्छाएं ग्रांट करना. Okay? That is why no true God that way. वो आपकी इच्छाएं ग्रांट करने के लिए नहीं बैठा, आप मांगोगे तो वो दे देगा. But what he basically wants to grant you is liberation. What he wants to grant you is a higher state of consciousness. आप आगे बढ़ो, evolve करो. You get united with the divine will, right? That is what any true God will grant, right? But इसमें एक चीज समझने वाली है, the psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires में, कि the psychic being the bhakta, okay? And it's the most intimate relation with the divine, that of the lover and beloved, वो सारा जो होता है, right? So synthesis में एक sentence है, nothing is denied to the bhakta for he is the very self of the beloved. इसमें क्या होता है? Sri Aurobindo again says, this is in the Yoga and its Objects. Exact नहीं याद आ रहा, but basically those who ask from the divine what they want, the divine gives it to them. ठीक है? But those who ask nothing, but those who give themselves, to them the divine gives everything that they may have otherwise asked or needed, and the infinite riches of his love. It's a very beautiful, worth memorizing 2 sentences from the Yoga and its Objects. I actually will just pull it out and read it. It's very important. Just a second. Pardon me for the delay. Boons of his love, not riches, boons of his love. One second. To those who demand from him.
Tell the page number.
I have opened actually the CWSA 13 essays in philosophy on yoga, in which it is there.
In booklet, that's why I asked.
Booklet में मेरे पास booklet अभी नहीं है.
Okay.
I don't have a PDF of the booklet. So in CWSA 13, it is page number 74. Okay. I'll share it with the incarnate word link. Don't worry about that. आपको मिल जाएगा. To those who demand from him, God gives what they demand. This is the difference between the vital and the psychic जो हम कर रहे थे. To those who demand from him, God gives what they demand, but to those who give themselves and demand nothing, he gives everything that they might otherwise have asked or needed, and in addition, he gives himself and the spontaneous boons of his love. What a sentence. I'll just read it again slowly. It's fair actually if I copy it on the chat. Anyway, to those who demand from him, God gives what they demand. But to those who give themselves and demand nothing, he gives everything that they might otherwise have asked or needed. And in addition, he gives himself, God gives himself to that person and the spontaneous boons of his love. So, one does not want to attain the psychic being क्योंकि ऐसा हो जाएगा. But when that self-giving and that absence of demand, etc. is so genuine, then automatically asked or needed, आपने जो मांगा वो तो मिलेगा ही, आपको जो चाहिए, because you don't know. God knows what is needed for you, right? So what I mean to say basically, in that sense, through that psychic being coming forward, जो भी आपकी लेजिटिमेट नीड्स थी या डिजायर्स थी इन दैट वे, वो ऑटोमेटिकली कंप्लीट होती। उपनिषद कहता है इसी चीज को, मुंडक उपनिषद, कि फॉर ही हु अटेन्स द ब्रह्मन, whatsoever he desires is his. Towards the end of the Mundaka Upanishad it comes, whoever attains the Brahman, मेरे को श्लोक नहीं याद है उसका, whatsoever he desires it is because of this. And that because that Brahman is not attained without self-giving. And once you have attained it, somebody has written something on the chat. Paste किया है क्या किसी ने वो sentence? Everyone. Page 5, second para, third line. Shrivalli has mentioned the quotation कहाँ पे है, right? Thank you, Shrivalli. But यहाँ पे, and हाँ, again, इसमें not to be clever. This is a problem with human nature, ना? This cleverness, this crookedness, टेढ़ापन, कि ऐसा करूंगा तो ये हो जाएगा. नहीं, it is done for its own sake. It is done for the sake of the truth. It is done because it should be done. By it I mean genuinely loving the divine, seeking the divine, bringing the psychic being forward, trying to evolve to a higher consciousness. That itself is its highest reward. Attaining that consciousness, आपको कुछ चाहिए ही नहीं होगा. Whatever you need, it will automatically will come to you. होता है. एक वो हिंदी में कोट करते हैं साधु लोग, चाह गई चिंता हटी मनवा बेपरवाह, जिसको कुछ ना चाहिए वो शाहों के शाह. And once you attain, you find that all the, whatever you need, all the riches of the world, वो सब आपके पीछे भागने लगता है. Like that. Anyway, बहुत ज्यादा उसमें elaboration की जरूरत नहीं है. The point is simple enough, right? So just once more, the psychic being is not the fulfiller of desires. It is the spark of the divine in all things manifested here that grows into the psychic being and supports the evolution. Very clear. It is that which survives the dissolution of the vital and physical sheaths and returns to birth again. Physical sheath is Annamaya Kosha, vital sheath is Pranamaya Kosha. उनका डिसोल्यूशन वो सर्वाइव करता है and returns to birth again. Last time में जातस्य ही ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवम जन्म मृतस्य च. Second part of that. Dhruvam janma mritasya cha. For he who is dead, birth is certain. Until you are out of the cycle of birth and death. So nothing to grieve. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Tasmat apariharyerthe natvam shochitum arhasi. Right? So there is something in us which survives the dissolution of the vital and physical chi and returns to birth again. And once you become conscious of this entity, you can plan for future births consciously, I'm saying. Not in just a way of saying कि बोलने के लिए बोल रहे, नहीं. You know that you cannot achieve more than this in one birth, so you become so conscious and you plan your life and your evolution consciously in such a way. You can choose consciously. वो तो होता ही है. When we leave the body, the time of leaving the body is the time when the soul decides कि next birth के circumstances क्या होंगे. This is there in a letter of Sri Aurobindo. I'll share the exact text. Right? So you can consciously become master of your evolution and destiny. Right? 9-1. I think वो बाकी वाला नहीं हो पाएगा आज. We'll see. चलो. The two feelings you have are that of two different personalities or parts in the being. Okay. One which has the feeling of service is in the vital. The other which has the feeling of the child and of the self-giving is the psychic. 1 minute. The two feelings you have are that of two different personalities or parts in the being. One which has the feeling of service is in the vital because it wants to do something. No? The other which has the feeling of the child and of the self-giving is the psychic. In the progress of the sadhana, these different parts or personalities get developed or transformed and harmonize with each other, all becoming parts of the ultimate perfection of the being in the mother's consciousness. One which has the feeling of service is in the vital. So it is when basically the vital has started getting converted. It wants to serve the divine. ये for example मैंने एक quotation किसी के साथ share किया था. So the question which was asked was, what is the character of psychic bhakti, mental bhakti and vital bhakti for the mother? How to recognize them? I'll share it on the group itself immediately. Those who want to read can read this thing. Question is, what is the character of 9-2? कोई बात नहीं. What is the character of psychic bhakti, mental bhakti, and vital bhakti for the mother? How to recognize them? The psychic is made up of love and self-giving without demand, right? Which has the feeling of the child. The child word, one of the earliest letters which we read. The natural attitude of the psychic being is to feel itself the child, the son of God, the bhakta. Right? What is God after all? An eternal child playing an eternal game in an eternal garden. And the psychic is basically God, it is the divine. Right? That sense of play and that sense of wonder. जो भी मतलब बच्चे की एक distinguishing characteristics होती हैं, joy, delight, pure delight, that is the most fundamental characteristic, right? So the psychic is made up of love and self-giving without demand. The vital, ठीक है, of the will to be possessed by the mother and serve her. This is the vital bhakti. The mental of faith and unquestioning acceptance of all that the mother is, says, and does. He further clarifies, these, however, are outside signs. It is an inner character quite recognizable, but not to be put into words that they differ. Who differ? The vital bhakti, psychic bhakti, and the mental bhakti. तो इसको मतलब मैंने ग्रुप में डाल दिया है. The two feelings you have are that of different personalities or parts in the being. One which has the feeling of service is in the vital. यहाँ पे जो लिखा है, the will to be possessed by the mother and serve is very powerful. वही जो सारा वो जब vital transform हो जाए ना, I want to serve the mother. मदर के लिए तो मैं जी जान लगा दूंगा. I will leave no stone unturned, like that. That comes when the vital starts getting turned towards it. हनुमान का जो मैंने example last time, this is the most perfect example. I mean, I cannot think of a bit. In Shri Aurobindo's, I mean, उसमें कई लोग हैं. चंपक लाल is attendant. He was like, इतना ज्यादा surrender था उनके अंदर, बता नहीं सकते. Would not even, anyway. So yeah, in the progress of the sadhana, these different parts of personalities get developed or transformed and harmonized with each other, all becoming parts of the ultimate perfection of the being in the mother's consciousness. Yeah. अब ये बाकी नहीं पढ़ पाएंगे ना, even though it is small, we won't be able to do it today.
Yeah, we'll just
We'll do it next time, कोई problem नहीं.
yeah, let's not rush.
वो भी remaining time है, though 1 hour is over basically. But anybody
Yeah.
has anything to say, any discussion, question, anything, we can cover that. इसका जो टेक अवे होना चाहिए from today's session, it is, this distinction between the desired soul, the vital, and the true soul. And to really want to distinguish it, many times we are quite complacent and happy to be in that desired soul and take it for the true soul. वो really वो इच्छा ही जागृत नहीं होती है to find the truth. This is also there. So
this is also somewhere the more purified that we are, we'll be able to recognize the psychic
yes,
more, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Yeah.
not to be mistaken between the vital desire and the psychic.
Yes, yes.
And
The
moreover, the psychic also will be very calm and quiet, right?
yes,
Like
yes.
the
Basically,
will
हाँ,
be
the-
like it's like more compulsive, that
yes, yes,
sort of feeling that you get.
yes, yes. Self-giving, actually. When there's this genuine desire to give yourself to the divine, in work, in your heart, in your mind, in every which way, that self-giving, मतलब एक अगर हम ये word याद रख लें, psychic का जो characteristic है, it is self-giving.
So it's like an identity, right? So
It
you're
will lead to the
kind of,
identity.
yeah.
It comes from the identity. The psychic knows that it is one with the divine, and that is why it wants to give itself to the divine unreservedly. उसका और कोई, for the psychic being, there is no other purpose of existence than to serve the divine or to give itself to the divine. It has no other purpose. As I said, जो example जब वो कन्याकुमारी वाली बात हुई थी, the Radha is the psychic being. जो soul है, that is what Radha really means. And Krishna is the divine. So their love, that complete self-giving of Radha to Krishna, that basically symbolizes this complete giving of the soul to the divine.
Yeah. So like in the objects also, it's the Atma Samarpan that he says.
Yes, Atma Samarpan. And what will happen is we will begin. He says this, that the beginning is with the desire for Atma Samarpan. हमारे अंदर ये इच्छा जागृत होगी. We will want to surrender ourselves completely. That is the first step. And then we have to tend to that aspiration and to make sure, कि वो दबे नहीं. The Atma Samarpan becomes real. It increases. जिसमें लिखा ना, the will to be possessed by the mother and serve her. That's the vital bhakti.
So this also in our daily life, like for everything we remember her, and then we keep offering our work, and the most uh, even before the work, after the work, or in the thought, everything, whenever we can remember. So we'll be inch by inch moving towards that,
Definitely.
right?
Definitely.
Purification keeps happening.
Definitely. This is one of the ways recommended by Sri Aurobindo. Okay, if you cannot remember the mother all the time in your work, naturally, because you get engaged in it. तो
Yeah.
पूरी तरह, so you remember at the beginning and you remember at the end, offer at the end, remember and offer. And gradually इससे क्या होगा? You will become aware of this inner consciousness within you. So even while you are working, so you will remain aware of it. And even while being engaged in the work, that inner freedom will remain. And this again, मतलब this has to increase more and more. साधना में क्या होता है ना, there are many like plateaus. तो एक फेज आया, आपकी बहुत तेजी से प्रोग्रेस हुई, but then it becomes a plateau. So you become flat. And you can stay there. आपको मिल तो गया है, feeling some वो feel good feeling आ रही है, but one has to not remain satisfied with that, right? जो divine का वो ecstatic आनंद है, that rapturous love, that is the aim. आत्मज्ञान के जो realized लोग होते हैं, if one sees their photos, there's such a radiance, and वही मतलब it again, that cannot be pinpointed, that is very individual.
But this double awareness is also like it happens sometimes. You lose it. Yeah, maybe you have to keep working.
Say again.
So this double awareness you have, right? You're
Yes.
working.
Yes.
And again, you are also aware that you're watching what you do.
Yes. Yes.
So this doesn't stand all the time.
That doesn't say,
Yeah.
through matlab sincerity and basically through intensity of aspiration. Through intensity of aspiration, it has to be increased. उसको बढ़ाना हो. It doesn't stay. Obviously, nothing stays like that. जिनका
So,
stay हो
Anmol
जाता है, they are become realized.
I agree with what Sri Ali is saying actually, because it's a very this thing double awareness to maintain constantly throughout
You
work.
can switch on the video. It is easier to have the conversation.
Yeah. Just hang on. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that this is very true. It's not easy because when you're concentrating and deep inside the work, you are just you become one with the work. So that exclusive concentration, takes over this double awareness. But then once you again relax a bit, that time it pops in back. But then again, in order to engage fully and make sure that the work is also done perfectly, I don't think it's very difficult to maintain that double awareness in maintaining the concentration as well. So that's
here
where
on earth to do difficult things.
yeah, true.
But
Sure.
again, we should also think when you're reading Sri Aurobindo's book or Savitri, all his books, of course, then it's a different kind of feeling that you're like very settled in the peace, and it's very different. But the same thing doesn't stand when you're working. That's where I like.
That is the whole challenge in the integral yoga, na?
So one of the techniques or one of the things that I do.
वो होगा, धीरे धीरे होगा. It will happen slowly. One has not to leave the work, because if you leave the work, karma yoga gaya, to integral yoga gaya. It's very simple. Okay. So this yoga does not allow you to leave work that way. दिस योगा आई मीन वो तो चलो ऐसे बोल रहे हैं, तो वो धीरे धीरे आएगा, वन हैज टू परसिवियर. एंड वही आई थिंक द की फ्रेज इज intensity of aspiration. How badly do you want it? It is that fire of intensity of aspiration that will remove these obstacles. And I mean,
One of the things that I can share what I do because I work on computer.
yeah.
So I keep Mother and Sri Aurobindo's photo in the background.
Mm.
So when working, you just do Alt tab or Command tab and just switch over for every few minutes.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
that I mean, but again, still it's
Whatever help you
once-
can get, one has to take.
it's a very mechanical help that I'm taking, but
I can, since you mentioned it, I can share. I was also working as a programmer for 8 years. So, like last 1 or 2 years, I used to plug in Mother Savitri readings, mostly Savitri readings. And if you do that, then inside तो आपका वो पूरा भर गया, right? You're full of that divine, that mother's consciousness within you. And not only does it give you that liberation and inner consciousness, but आपकी efficiency बहुत बढ़ जाती है. Because the Shakti starts flowing and all ideas, intuitions, problem solving वगैरह, it happens very fast.
true.
योग कर्मसु कौशलम जो बोलते हैं ना, तो वो मैनिफेस्ट होने लगता है. तो obviously मतलब
Especially in doing physical things, man, it becomes very tough. Like whereas if you're doing mental things, it becomes a little easier because
one
you
should
get those
not
mental.
focus too much on the difficulties. This is one of the, I mean, commonsensical points given by Sri Aurobindo. Focus more on the positives. मतलब ठीक है, of course the difficulties are there and you have to see them, and but that that happy faith in the divine कि now मतलब the mother has chosen me, okay, she has chosen me, her hand of grace is there upon me. Again आप अगर इसको normally देखें, there are so many paths and so many gurus and इतना कुछ है. Through all that maze, I'm not all good in their own way and to each his own, जो जिसको सूट करता है. But like since the time I have read that sentence, जो वो दो थे मैंने आई थिंक ग्रुप में भी डाला था कि the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, as he explains, it is the natural and destined outcome of all the past spiritual endeavor. Oh my goodness, मतलब all the yoga that has been happening in the earth since पूरा उसमें बताते हैं. I'll again share that it is those two letters are like worth reading again and again, again and again until it sinks into you, right? So what fortune that उन्हें वो बाहर निकाल लिया, and that happy faith that mother is there with me, and कैसे भी करके गिरते पड़ते somehow or the other I will reach and I will get ensconced in her being. तो वो
So,
that
Anubhav
perfect
bhai,
trust should be there.
you mentioned, I'm just reminded of the things that I had done, and now still I continue to do that.
Yeah.
Especially you talked about programming, right? So
Yeah.
we get stuck very often in programming, right? In
Yeah.
between,
Yeah.
while providing a solution or a logic. So
Yeah.
immediately I have developed this thing. I enter into conversation with the mother. Mother, how do I solve this?
Yeah.
That way, it becomes very active.
Yeah.
That works, but yeah.
I'm sharing this. Please, everybody, read this. That's just amazing. I mean, it's one of my latest discoveries that way. Last 2 weeks or so, ये मिला था. Amazing what he's saying here. Okay. Shall I stop the screen sharing?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this.
It is the natural but still secret, destined outcome of all the past spiritual endeavor. Just imagine the gravity and magnanimity of this sentence.
Yeah,
He's
it
talking about
goes
his
through
yoga.
all
It
the
is the
four
natural. It is
phases.
the natural. और कहीं कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता. It is the natural but still secret. अभी तक ये धरती को दिया नहीं गया, right? But still secret. That's why so many people, Sri Aurobindo is a secret. Nobody knows about him. Who knows about him? So few people. But still secret, destined outcome of all the past spiritual endeavor. Obviously, जब तक वो descent वगैरह नहीं हो, when you read those letters of Sri Aurobindo wherein he speaks of the descent of the higher consciousness, और वो अंदर से एकदम stillness भर गई है, descent of ananda, descent of peace, but like wow, what condition it must be. So, and obviously he says that descent is the stamp and seal of the sadhana. तो yeah. इसके पहले
And
वाला
the
पे आप
carry,
रियली
huh?
अर्जिंग, मैं इसमें नोट में भी डाल दूंगा ग्रुप में, Please read this again and again till you understand what he's saying here. It is something so fundamental.
Actually, yoga and his objects भी करना चाहिए.
धीरे धीरे, ऑल इन गुड टाइम. अभी आप लोगों का स्पेस इतना स्लो है बिकॉज एक थोड़ा लॉन्ग वाइंडेड भी हो जाता है, प्लस इट्स वेरी डेलिबरेट. सो
It is this space and everything is good, Anmol
yoga
bhai.
and its objects is a
So,
bomb, absolutely. I mean,
oh, it's such a summary. I mean, unbelievable
unbelievable,
summary.
unbelievable book.
Even this paragraph of P4, which you've pasted here, is actually the Sankshepa of the Gita's first chapter. Apna essays on the Gita ka last paragraph.
Which paragraph, sir?
The thing that you pasted here on WhatsApp,
Hmm.
just above the P6 transformation P6, there's a
हाँ.
supramental this four synthesis of India, of spiritual history of India, Vedic, then Vedic age followed
हाँ
by
हाँ हाँ हाँ.
वो
Yeah.
पूरा चार phases तंत्र
Therein,
and all
आप
that.
जो कह रहे हैं उसमें थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस, बस ये एडिशन उसमें ये है. Therein he speaks only of the chronology of the synthesis, right? But वो वहां पे वो
हाँ,
डिसेंट वगैरह का बात नहीं करते.
yes, there, yeah,
यहाँ
in
पे
the
इस
context
लेटर
of
में he
Gita, हाँ,
speaks of first the ascent to connect to the spiritual at the summit, and then the descent of that same spiritual energy into the mental, leading to the philosophies, into the vital and emotional, leading to the bhakti religions, and into the body, leading to the hatha yogas and the tantras and all that. Oh, baap re baap, he covers the whole history
yeah,
of spiritual evolution of world.
yeah. Spiritual
And
history of India.
reminded of that sentence of Sri Aurobindo, the autobiographical sentence. I had my past and the world's past to assimilate and overpass before I could find and found the future. Oh my goodness. थोड़ा स्लोली बोलता हूँ जिन्होंने नहीं सुना होगा उनके लिए. I had my past and the world's past. That is why, even a scholarship, चाहे वो संस्कृत के टेक्स्ट हो, ऋग्वेद, लैटिन ग्रीक हो, हर एक लेवल पे अनबिलीवेबल. मतलब इज आई हैड माय पास्ट एंड द वर्ल्ड्स पास्ट टू असिमिलेट एंड ओवरपास बिफोर आई कुड फाइंड एंड फाउंड द फ्यूचर. फर्स्ट पर्सन में बोल रहे हैं कि ही इज द फाउंडर ऑफ द फ्यूचर. भाई ना, बट दिस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स बहुत मेरे को ये सेंटेंस, ऑनेस्टली आई एम टेलिंग यू, आई हैव बीन रीडिंग श्री अरबिंदो सिंस 2007, actually since 2006. To read this and understand this, it took almost 16-17 years. Of course, I might be a very slow person, that might be another problem, but time लगता है, पता है, इस तरह के gems uncover होने में. Then wow, this he is acknowledging in first person. Anyway, ठीक है, close करें क्या? 9:20 हो गया almost. We'll close with silence.